What do you say to a rabbit on its birthday?
What?
Happy birthday.
What started as a Saturday morning coffee date turned into a podcast where we chat about things like faith, family, finances, and so much more.
In a world that is encouraging you to live your truth and to follow your heart, we want to encourage you to live devoted to the truth.
The Bible has a lot to say about how to live a victorious Christian life, and we want to share practical insight in how to apply those truths to your life as we endeavor to apply them to our own lives as well.
If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and share these episodes with your friends so that you can help them live this devoted life too. Welcome to another episode of This Devoted Life podcast.
Woo!
Oh my goodness. Are you for real?
Yeah, that did sound a little corny, didn't it?
It probably sounded better in your head.
Yes, definitely. So, life's been a little crazy lately. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because probably all of you listening are in similar phases where everything is a little busy and intense and crazy. So, this morning, today's Sunday that we're actually recording this podcast. And this morning, we went to Sunday school. Then I stayed for the main service, and right after that, one of my buddies texted and said, "Hey, do you want to take the kids sledding?" Mm-hmm. And we got a lot of snow this week, and it's awesome sledding conditions. So I'm like, absolutely, let's go. Let's do this. So took the kids sledding. I think ate lunch in there somewhere in between. And so went sledding, had a great time. And then our kids are in Fleet Feet, which is some running / calisthenics program.
Yeah, and they do track and they do cross country in the fall. So one of our daughters is very fast, like insanely fast. And so she's been telling me that she wants to get into track. And so this Fleet Feet that's currently going on right now is more like a conditioning for spring track.
Yeah.
So they are doing calisthenics and stuff. So we told our 8-year-old and our 12-year-old that they were going to do it too, because they both play sports. And we're like, it's just good for you, you know, to get active. So 3 of our kids are involved. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it literally went from sledding to just stopped home real quick to grab their stuff, went to Fleet Feet, and then literally went from Fleet Feet back home, changed, dropped them off at Awana, and here we are.
Yeah,
so
much for a day of rest.
Yeah, exactly. So at any rate, in the midst of all of this kind of wild and craziness, I wanted to step back and just thank the Lord for this time in our life.
Yeah.
It really is amazing and incredible and fun. And amidst the chaos, it's just a special time in our lives.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah.
So with that, honestly, about a couple months ago now, I gave a message at our church. We do, it's basically called Preaching from the Pew. And that morning, a couple people canceled, actually. So I had a lot longer to speak.
Good thing you were well prepared.
You know that I can kind of ad lib and do things. So, so what we're going to do today, and that was on thankfulness and just the power of thankfulness and things like that. So I'm going to try not to be too preachy, but this podcast is going to be basically a recreation of that. So I haven't really gone through the notes and refreshed my memory. So hopefully it all makes as good a sense as I think it did back then.
It was great.
Thanks. So with that, the text of the message was 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18. So I'll start by reading that. 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18 says, "Rejoice evermore, pray without ceasing. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you." So again,
that'll preach.
It'll preach, yeah, and it kind of stands on its own, really. I mean, you could literally just stop talking right now and read that a couple more times, and it literally would have, kind of like I said, just stand on its own.
Totally.
Or at the same token, it's so deep that you could preach series of messages on it. But the one thing that I wanted to extract out of it is in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And really how simple the Christian life is. So again, that passage is rejoice evermore, pray without ceasing, and in everything give thanks. So it really is that simple. You could just love God, keep his commandments, and do these three things. And that's as simple as it really needs to be. You don't have to make it more complicated than
I know
that.
you always tell me it's not complicated, it's simple, but that doesn't mean it's not hard.
Right.
And so like you said, like this passage, it is really that simple, but you could preach on it for hours. So you could also go very deep with it. And it's not as easy as it sounds, just, in everything, give thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, that's simple to say. Not so easy to do.
Right. Yeah. Simple, not very easy. So again, most things in life are that easy, except for Calculus 4. Calculus 4 was not simple or easy.
I didn't take it, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. No, but seriously, again, things really are that simple. So like, for example, if you want to lose weight, then eat fewer calories than you burn in a day, and you're going to lose weight. Again, there's all kinds of medical things, whatever. But in general, it's very simple, not necessarily easy.
Exactly.
Right? You know, I mean, you and I literally talk about this all the time, and try to stay in shape and exercise, things like that. But it's not easy, you know, and try not to gain. There's a difference between trying not to gain and actually losing. And one is a lot harder than the other, but both of them are difficult. So again, if you want to lose weight faster, then exercise and create a bigger caloric deficit. So
Even harder.
Yes, exactly. Eat less, exercise more, have that caloric deficit be greater. If you want to feel better, then you stop eating sugar and highly processed foods. It's, again, literally that simple. And I think we're going to do a podcast here soon. I listened to a podcast about, I think it was Patrick Bet-David and Paul Saladino, and about,
You sent it to me. I still have to listen to it, but
about some health stuff and whatnot. But really, if you eat single ingredient foods, you're going to feel better, right?
Yeah.
So again, simple, not necessarily easy. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of planning, takes a lot of effort. Another thing, if you want to make money, have a good work ethic and provide value to people. It's pretty simple. If you want to make more money, provide more value to people with more money. And
simple, but hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, you got to really kind of have a lot of things aligned to make it happen. So simple, not easy. I think I've hit that home. So in that same token, I wanted to, several years ago, I wanted to make things simple for our kids. So, because I felt like, we just had gotten to a point where it's like, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. And, for a 3-year-old, it doesn't have to be complicated, right? So I came up with 2 things. And I had them repeat them. I'd like to think daily, but it was just several times a week. I want you to be obedient and respectful. And for a couple of years, at least, those were our 2 things. And over and over and over, be obedient and be respectful. And then, I don't know, one day I just, must have heard something, read something, thought about something, had a devotional. And I thought, I need to add thankfulness to that because thankfulness is so important in our lives.
It's powerful.
It is. So with that, it was be obedient, be respectful, and be thankful.
Yeah,
So,
if you were to ask our kids, like if someone walked up to them and were like, what are the 3 things your dad and mom tell you, they would be able to rattle those off. At least I would hope so.
Yeah.
Our 4-year-old might be a little questionable still, but
Right. Yeah. But again, it's the whole concept of I don't want them in the parable of the 10 lepers, where I shouldn't just assume that everyone knows these things. But so there's a parable in the Bible, and it's about the 10 lepers, and Jesus healed all 10. And 9 of them just literally left and went on their way and were excited. And only one of them came back and thanked Jesus for healing them. And it's such a powerful message. I would encourage you to read it. But I don't want our kids to be like the 9 lepers.
Yeah.
I want them to be like the one that thanked the Lord for what he did. I mean, can you imagine having that disease and that terrible, I don't know, just everything about it. And then you literally get healed. You have a whole new lease on life. You have a whole new bright future and perspective. And you couldn't even stop and say thank you.
yeah, I would like to think that you and I would be the one to go back, but then I also put ourselves into the other 9's shoes, and it's like their lives were just changed so drastically.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't imagine how excited I would have been. Like
Sure.
you had been running home to family and like they hadn't been able to hug anybody in forever. And now here they are cleansed, and we probably would have been like the 9, you know, but we're working towards being the 1.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So
Yeah.
again, totally agree. But thankfulness is so powerful. Again, thousands of years later, we're talking about that parable and illustration in the Bible about thankfulness. So I really don't think we can be reminded enough in our lives to be thankful. And, being unthankful, so like the antithesis of this is, you don't really think having a complaining spirit is that dangerous, but it really is dangerous. It can lead to more sins like lying, pride, envy, lust, really just to name a few.
And it affects everyone else around you
It
too.
does,
Like
yes.
that negative spirit. Like if I'm having a bad day, the kids inevitably have a bad day because it infects everything and everyone around you if it just permeates.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, the children of Israel, they got delivered from the hand of Pharaoh and, miracles of, just the Red Sea parting and them being able to flee. And that's after the plagues and all being released.
They literally saw miracles in real time
Yes.
and they still complained.
Yes. All the murmuring, and then God would deliver them and take care of them, and then they're even complaining more. And it took them 40 years to go what I believe was supposed to be about an 11-day journey.
And then Moses goes away for a few days up into a mountain to talk to God, and while he's up there, the children of Israel are creating a false idol out of gold and worshiping it.
Yeah.
How do you go from physically seeing God in a cloud and you are standing at the base of the mountain and you can hear the rumbling, God is up there talking with Moses, and yet you're going to be down here making a golden calf to worship, which is just, it's mind-boggling. But once again, I just try to put myself into their shoes, and I would like to think I would not be one of them, but time and time again, we prove that we are.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that trap, that complaining spirit. And, last fall we had the elections and there's all this political unrest and all these things. And you hear so often that, the world has become such a terrible place and everything and blah, 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 and it's like, this is true, but we as Christians, especially, we already know the end of the story and can live victoriously through it all.
Yeah, God gives us the victory over those things. Like we don't have to live from a place of defeat. We can live through a place of victory because ultimately God has given us the victory through his son.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and honestly, it's almost... it's important to be thankful all the time, but especially in the times of trials and the toughness that, that's really when we're tried.
Yeah.
And it's that much more important to be thankful and to love the Lord and his commandments through it and just thank him for the little things.
Yeah.
There's so many things that we have in our lives that we can be thankful for. And again, this verse doesn't just say, in all good things. It definitely doesn't say in all good things. And it doesn't, just say, give thanks. It says in everything, give thanks. So,
So it's funny. We had Trina actually gave a message in her Sunday school class today that really goes along with this. And I was thinking about that while you were talking.
I saw you grab the Bible.
I know.
And I was like,
uh-oh,
it's about ready to come.
Something. But I had never looked at this verse this way. But 1 Peter 3:10 says, "For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips that they speak no guile." And I was like, for him that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue. Like that, it's that simple. What we say affects our day, and it's just, I don't know why. I was equating that to thankfulness and just how, how we talk really can affect literally everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, like I said, as you were talking, I just was like, it's our tongue. Like we need to be thankful and to actually use our words and let our kids hear us praising the Lord and, how I talk about you and to our kids. And, it really does, it's like a promise for he that will love life and see good days.
Yeah.
Even on your really hard days, if you have a thankful heart and a thankful tongue, you're still going to see good,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I kind of along that line, I think gratefulness can be an indicator of your level of godliness.
Absolutely.
And it's not just this snapshot in time. You
Mhm.
know, we can be very grateful and then, fall into a complaining spirit.
Mhm.
And, so again, I think it's something to pay attention to be mindful of, and to be proactively working on.
Mhm.
Because again, it's usually an indicator of your level of godliness
Yeah.
throughout that.
Yeah. I can see that because I know, in times where maybe I am struggling to read my Bible, or like I just kind of going through like a season of drought, usually my words will reflect that,
Absolutely. Yeah. So, again, I don't think a lot of the people listening to this would ever have even heard of my mom, let alone know her. I'm sure I've brought her up numerous times on previous podcasts,
Mhm.
but she struggled for decades, literally decades, with severe health issues. I mean, just the level of pain was insurmountable
Yeah.
with rheumatoid arthritis, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And then the infection set
Mhm.
in, other issues. I mean, just you name it.
I
And
never knew her not handicapped because she was
yeah,
in a wheelchair and she was never able to stand and do things from the moment I met you. And
yeah,
we've been together a long time.
yeah. It literally started when I was 2 years old.
Hmm.
So even myself, I really don't remember her ever not having some form of ailment. Now,
Hmm.
again, it progressed through the years, but
Yeah.
she also, in the midst of all that,
Hmm.
had an incredible positive spirit.
Hmm.
People loved being around her. It was really special.
Yeah, she
And
literally thought of it as her ministry. Because I
she
remember her
did.
telling me, God gave me this because now people come into my home and I can tell them about him.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
People are bringing them to me, or, God is
God's-
bringing the people to me.
yeah, she's
Yeah.
like, God's bringing them to me. So I don't even have to go out anywhere. I just get to, talk with them. She's like, and I have a captive audience for an entire hour while they're changing my wound, like bandages, and giving me a new IV and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's just like, I don't know that I could have that level of, thankfulness
Yeah.
and gratitude for the disability that God gave her.
Oh, it was incredible. And, so once again, level of godliness,
Mhm.
how it affects people around us, I mean, she would have been the prime example or person
Mhm.
that people would be like, ugh, like I just can't go be around Ann anymore because
Mhm.
everything she says and this, and she could be such a downer and
Yeah.
negative, but she wasn't. She was literally, people would go, and be with her and then walk away more energized.
Oh, totally.
And, I mean, just because of the person that she was. So, so intentional, so positive, so thankful for everything in her life. She
Mhm.
truly was thankful for every day. In that, like with her, throughout that in her spirit, her favorite song was "It Is Well With My Soul."
Mhm.
And that is a special and powerful thing. Again, I don't want to assume that people know who are listening to
Well,
this.
can you give
but
us a little bit of a synopsis of what was going on?
yeah, so Horatio Spafford wrote the song "It Is Well With My Soul," and again, I wish that I had a list of things here that he went through, but literally, his child was he lost his child, he lost, I think, his business burnt down, lost kind of every material possession,
Mhm.
and then his wife and daughters got lost at sea
Mhm.
in a shipwreck, and he literally wrote the song right after that
Yeah.
devastating event. It would have been the final straw for anyone to, go through. And he wrote the song "It Is Well With My Soul."
Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think he wrote that on the ship as they passed by the spot where
pretty
his
sure you're
daughter
right.
or where his children and his wife
Yes.
drowned. And like the captain kind of called him over and was like, "We're near the spot," and he
Yeah.
penned those words.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
it makes me just want to tear up thinking about that.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, it's incomprehensible.
Mhm.
And for him to be able to, just have that godly perspective and
Mhm.
know that, his hope was in the Lord,
Mhm.
and then literally be positive and thankful
Mhm.
throughout that. I
He
mean,
was living from a place of victory, not from defeat.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so special. And again, we could unpack that so much more, but yeah, that was my mom's favorite song. And yeah, if I go into it more, I'll start crying myself.
Yeah, that song holds a special place in my heart as well because I
Yeah.
know after we miscarried our third baby, I remember very distinctly walking and taking the kids to a park and just singing that song while they just ran around and played. And
Yeah. Yep. Really special. Yeah. There are things in life that, will go on for decades, and hopefully the legacy that we can leave, and whether it's for our children, for the people around us, maybe even someone listening to this right now on this podcast, it's just, it's a special gift that we've been given. So many positive things in our life, and even in the midst of trial and struggle, you can be thankful and you can make an impact on others. It truly is contagious, and have people remember you for being positive rather than for being a downer, or for the things that are de-energizing
Right.
to them. So just a little encouragement. It's not I don't know. I'm not like trying to come down on anyone or whatever, but we have it so good, even in the midst of the worst things that you can think of, especially if we have Christ in our hearts, and know our eternal security is in the Lord. That's something that it's the most important part.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I had told you, you might even have it written down. There's a poem by William Wordsworth that talks about stray gifts.
Yep.
And, just God leaves these stray gifts in our path throughout the day if we have eyes to see them. I don't know if you have it or not.
Yeah,
but
I do. I actually have an excerpt of that. So what Shanda's talking about is an excerpt from a poem, "Stray Gifts" by William Wordsworth, and he that little excerpt says, "They dance not for me, yet mine is their glee. Thus pleasure is spread through the earth in stray gifts to be claimed by whoever shall find. Thus a rich loving kindness, redundantly kind, moves all nature, gladness and mirth." So again, just really, just be thankful for there's literally so many things that happen on a daily basis that we can be thankful for. Be thankful for your next breath, for your last breath, for something that's coming up, whether it's later today or weeks from now.
The sunshine outside after a long winter, of no sun in Michigan.
Yeah, yep. Then comes the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another, just multitude of examples that we could glean about thankfulness comes from Corrie ten Boom.
Oh, I love Corrie ten Boom.
Yeah. But just one of those. I'm going to read a little excerpt here from that as well, and it's just a great illustration of things that we can be thankful for. So Corrie ten Boom and her sister Betsy spent months in the German concentration camps, which were horrific, flea-ridden, death-dealing places. Both women were afraid, but Betsy came to Corrie one day with an idea that might help them. She quoted a passage from 1 Thessalonians, "In everything give thanks." Sound familiar? So Corrie quickly replied that she could not give thanks for the fleas. Betsy reminded her that she could give thanks that the two of them were together, as most families had been split apart. Corrie said she could give thanks for that, but not the fleas. Then Betsy noted that somehow the guards had not checked her luggage, and therefore her Bible had not been confiscated. Corrie agreed she could be thankful for that, but not for the fleas. She could not, she said, under any circumstance, give thanks for the pestilential fleas. But eventually, Corrie learned that the only reason she and her sister had not been assaulted by the guards was because their captors were so repulsed by the fleas that they could not enter the girls' barracks and would not. Years later, Corrie ten Boom reflected that this is how she was taught to give thanks for all things, because you just never know.
Oh, so good.
Isn't it, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, think of just the situation that they were in. Yeah, it's amazing.
How often do we go through hard trials and we don't realize that they're actually mercies from God?
Yeah.
There's things that we go through where we're just like, I don't know why you're having me do this, God. I can't see it, and
Right.
I was just talking to someone recently, because I mentioned the miscarriage and our infertility and stuff that we struggled with.
Okay.
And I was like, I would still go through those all over again. And the reason that I would go through them again is because of the growth that God gave me through that. I gained compassion for those who were struggling with something similar.
Absolutely.
I grew closer to the Lord. I grew closer to you, and just, it was a time of deepening my faith. And so I mean, I'm on the other side of it now. When I was going through it, it was a lot harder,
Sure.
but hindsight's always 20/20. And it's just like, okay, God, I can see a glimpse of the why,
Right.
why you brought me through this.
Yeah.
And, it's so that I can praise him now because of it. And
Yeah, it takes sympathy to empathy.
exactly.
It allows you to minister to people
Yep.
when otherwise you would have never been able to.
Yep.
It also, is just something, we never know when we may be in the middle of a miracle.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And it seems so dire, so tough right now when you're in the middle of something. But then to be able to look back on that, and it's really, it may turn out to be a miracle in your life. And it's pretty powerful.
That is really good.
Yeah. So, again, this was a message that I shared. So I had an application at the end of the message. So the application was to think. I'm encouraging you to think, what are you thankful for today? That is something that I think we should do every day. What's one thing that I'm thankful for? What's 10 things that I'm thankful for? Also, I encourage you to thank the Lord each day for at least one thing, preferably more. You should be thankful in the good times and the tough. Again, it's important to, almost most important to be thankful in the tough times. And I also encourage you to share your thankful heart with others, because gratitude can be contagious. I mean, it's something, again, that, not only can impact someone, but leave a legacy. It's really important in our life. And gratitude is not about ignoring the difficulties, but rather trusting God through them. So.
I'm just laughing because all I can think of is the Patch the Pirate episode where they're like, oh no, he's catching it. And they're like, what? And he's like, the gratitude attitude. And
Yes, exactly.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. So again, rejoice, pray, and be thankful. It's
Yeah.
really about as simple as I can put it.
No, that was so good. I guess we'll move on from that to, because we're trying to do in every episode just something that we're reading or listening to, or just like a podcast that we're learning from.
Yep.
And I think that this could tie into what you're talking about here. So I finished the book, The Giver.
Okay.
I'd never read it before, but
Sounded pretty mind-bending.
it did. Yeah, it really had me thinking there for a while. Our son will be reading it in the upcoming years for school. And so I try to pre-read most of the stuff that he's going to be reading for school. And so I thought, well, I'll get a head start. I don't think he's not reading it this year, but I thought this will be something, worthwhile to read. So
Right.
I'm going to try not to give a lot away in this book, but it definitely was a little mind-bending. So basically there's like this society that is very calculated,
Okay.
where they have these set of rules. There's certain things that they have to do. So it's about a boy, and he has a family, and I'm going to say quote unquote family, because this society only allows 50 children to be born every year. There are birth mothers. These children at a certain age get given to parents, and this is like gifted to these parents. These
Interesting.
parents are married, but it's very platonic. They're only allowed to have 2 children. They get a boy and they get a girl.
Okay.
And so like if someone offends someone, you have to apologize immediately, or there's like a reprimand. They have like these loudspeakers that will call out not specific people, but you kind of know who they're talking about. It'd be
Okay.
like someone's, pigtails are always untied. Make sure your pigtails are tied. And they're always like, oh, well, that's Annie over there,
Right,
or
yeah.
whatever. So it's just kind of like a weird society, and you're kind of like, okay, I'm not really sure, how this is going to go. But the children kind of move up in stages, like each new grade, they all move up together. So like
Okay.
if you were born in a certain year, you are considered year 1, year
I
2,
see.
year 3.
Yep.
And at a certain age, I can't remember what age it is, but they're given their future role, their future job. And I think it's like 13 or something like that.
Okay.
So like at age 8, they got a new bike. Like that was like a big thing for all 8-year-olds to get a bike. So at 13, they're given their new job. And so like one of the friends, she gets to go and work with the elderly. And that in and of itself is very odd. So there's like this whole releasing ceremony for the elderly, and they call it a releasing. As you read it, you're like, they're basically murdering these people. And like at a certain age, they're like, you're no longer valuable to society and you're gone. But there's this
Sounds
big
intense.
this ceremony where everyone cheers and like sends them off, whatever. But it gets more and more sinister kind of as you're reading it. There's because they're only allowed 50 children to be born. If twins are born, only the strongest gets to survive and the other one gets released. And yeah, there's like a whole thing. So one boy gets chosen to become the receiver, and he gets together with a man who now becomes the giver. He was the previous receiver and he's now the giver. But this man held all of the memories of the world because they were too heavy for society to hold. And the reason that they do it is because they don't want anyone to feel pain. And so they've just removed any level of like feeling from this society. And so this giver is starting to give memories to this boy. And for instance, like he learned what snow was for the first time. He learned what sunshine was because he'd never experienced sunshine, because they realize if they leave you in this bubble and they remove the sun, they can, make sure that the ground or the crops are growing.
Okay.
And he never had seen color, because if there's no sunshine, there's no color. And so he's learning what these things are as the giver is giving them to him. And one of them, he comes back and he's like, "What was that?" And he was like, "That was love." He had experienced a Christmas with a family, and he was like, "I don't know what I'm like experiencing right now." And he's like, "That was love." And so then he starts getting some like painful memories too. But as you were talking about thankfulness, and I was thinking about just the memories that this boy was receiving, he didn't know what love was until he experienced pain. And then he experienced love. And it's just like, we can be thankful for the hard times and the good times. We can be thankful for the emotions. We can be thankful for snow. We can be thankful for sunshine. Like, they're just all the things that this boy never got to experience because his life had been devoid of it. He now was experiencing it for the first time. I'm not going to give away the end of the book, but it was really
spoiler alert.
Yeah, no spoiler alert for the end of the book, because I kind of gave away a lot with talking about it. But I definitely like recommend this. I would not say give it to like someone less than probably 13, 14 years old, because there's like one little part in it. But it was kind of mind bending as you're reading it, and the author did a really good job of like keeping you engaged. Like, I think I got through the book in like a day and a half or something like that. But it just like made me think of just all the little things that I could be thankful for that you kind of just take for granted, like being able to see color even, it's just, there's so much that we can thank the Lord for that we don't even take the time to think about, because they're just so like it's just natural, And even in a book like that, where it is fiction and it's, just kind of one of those things, there are people that have literally lived their entire life that have never seen color. Exactly.
Because they were born blind.
Yeah.
And, the people who were born without hearing and they're deaf, just there are always people that are worse off than you. And again, I get it. Believe me, I'm far from perfect, for not giving thankfulness and things like that. But at the same token, if we just expand our mind a little bit, think about how good we have it. I mean, it makes such a big difference. And, as a parent, it's kind of funny, because sometimes I'll look at our children and I'll think, man, you're a little ingrate. Do you realize how good you have it?
And then you're like, wait, God probably thinks that about me. Like, man, you little ingrate.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. And it's just so easy to fall in this complaining spirit and selfish mindset and things like that. So again, we all struggle with it. We all deal with it. But here's your encouragement to really just make that paradigm shift in your mind and be thankful, because it truly is so powerful. And when you take that spin, sometimes you kind of just have to force it, right? It doesn't come naturally or whatever, but it's worth forcing.
Yeah, no habit is easy, to start, and even just the habit of our words and
absolutely
the attitude of thankfulness.
Yep. And, whether it's, in our marriage, it's like, we can commiserate together sometimes, but it's like if you just don't get out of that, rut, or you can start, thinking selfishly and, feeling some animosity or unthankfulness about your spouse, and, that left unchecked can ruin a marriage.
Yeah. I mean, it's not saying to like have like a Pollyanna attitude all of the time, because we do have to talk about hard things. Absolutely. And we do share our feelings and stuff when,
100%.
We're feeling upset about something. It's
Yep.
not saying just to like blow everything off and just, always be thankful.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not that, because that's not healthy either.
No,
but
you can't suppress it.
No, there
Yeah.
is like an overall attitude though, that if we really work towards that, we
Yes.
can, have that victory.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
the mindset you approach it with. And, again, like you said, you got to take care of things
Yep.
and deal with tough things. But if you approach it with the right mindset, you can not only get through it, but thrive as you get through it. So
Yeah.
yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think we'll end there.
Yeah,
unless you have
sounds
something
good.
else to add. All right. Well, until next time, we want to encourage you to seek God, love your spouse, hug your kids, and stay devoted. Thank you for tuning in to this Devoted Life podcast with James and Shanda. We appreciate your support in sharing biblical, uplifting truths with the world. If you found value in this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us to improve the show, and we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how to live a life devoted to God and family, head over to thisdevotedlife.com. You can also follow me, Shanda, on Instagram at devoted_motherhood. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time on This Devoted Life podcast.